Welcome to This Week in Heresy, episode 61, Women of the Wall, with our guest via Skype, Rachel Cohen Yeshurun. Hey Rachel, welcome to This Week in Heresy.
Hi.
So for the benefit of my audience, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm Yeshurun, Rachel. I was actually born in Montreal, and I moved to Israel when I was 19. And a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I discovered Women of the Wall, this fantastic group of women who are fighting for the right to pray freely, out loud, wearing prayer shawls, reading from a Torah scroll at the Western Wall. And I joined 4 years ago, and I've been very involved since then.
So you say you're born in Montreal, so what made you want to go to Israel?
Well, from the time I was little, my parents were Zionist and always said that Israel is our home, and that one day we would go home. And so we did. Actually, my older sisters went first, and then I came with my parents.
So when you were little, did you go to the wall? Were you allowed to be in anywhere near it? Because I'm not really familiar with the way prayer is practiced at the wall. I mean, I've seen videos on like CNN and stuff, but.
Okay. Yeah, well, the Western Wall, since about 1968, there's been a division at the Western Wall for prayer between men and women. And that division has gotten stricter and stricter over the years. So I think that when I visited Israel for the first time when I was 12. I don't remember exactly, but I do know that the divider between the men's section and the women's was much lower, much lighter, much more see-through than it is today. But I must say that at the time, I didn't think much about it. I grew up Orthodox. In Orthodox Judaism, it's very, that's the norm, is for men and women to be separated during prayer. So I didn't think too much about it. When I came to Israel, I also, didn't think anything about it. I'm on a personal religious feminist journey, and my eyes have been opened since then. So, that it's still there still is a divider at the Western Wall, and Women of the Wall, that's not our agenda. We're okay with the fact that there's a divider. The problem is that on one side, what is permissible to people on one side of the divider suddenly becomes illegal or not acceptable on the other side. I have something interesting to say. I mean, just 2 months ago, I was arrested at the Western Wall. Yes, I was arrested. One of our problems is that we are allowed to read from a Torah scroll, but we're not allowed to bring in a Torah scroll. And it's a catch-22 situation where the men at the site can use one of 200 Torah scrolls that are there for public use. Public doesn't currently include women. On the other hand, no one is allowed to bring in a Torah scroll because there's some sort of regulations put in place actually to stop Women of the Wall from bringing in their own scroll. So it's a crazy situation where supposedly if we manage to bring one in, then the police will turn a blind eye and won't like won't stop us from reading. But we have to play cat and mouse to actually get the scroll in. And sometimes we succeed and sometimes we don't. And 2 months ago, I didn't. I got caught bringing it in, and I literally was taken to a police station in handcuffs, and of course with the Torah scroll itself. So my group didn't have a scroll to read from. And reading from a Torah scroll is a central part of the Jewish service. Mm-hmm. It's the highlight of the service. So the fact that we didn't have this scroll is very, from our point of view, it's very disappointing and wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, if you're going to read from the Torah scroll, you kind of need a Torah scroll to read from.
That's right. Well, what we do is when we don't have one, we do read the text from a, it is written in books, right? I mean, we have it in printed books, but the whole beauty of reading from the scroll is especially some of the scrolls that we get, they're old and they've been written generations ago, and the text itself, even if it's physically was written only 100 years ago or something, the text is at least 2,000 years old. Mm-hmm. So there's just something about reading from the actual scroll written on parchment. It's written by hand. The letters just dance. Mm-hmm. And it's important. It adds something important to the service to read from the scroll. I mean, no group of men would agree to this, to have a service and be denied the right to read from a scroll. So why should we?
You mentioned that this was around 1968 when it really started becoming very segregated for women, even more so than it usually was. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's gotten worse over the years? Why do you think it's gotten more so?
Yeah. Well, what seems to have happened is that the ultra-Orthodox have sort of consider the Western Wall their territory, and legally it's a public square. But the ultra-Orthodox have, in their minds, appropriated it as a sort of like a synagogue. They think of it, well, this is our synagogue. You don't come into our synagogue and tell us how to pray. We don't want women's voices heard, even in prayer at our synagogue. And this is our place. And Women of the Wall, it started in Women of the Wall is a group that started to meet in 1988. And the whole point of it was that the group of women came and said, no, this is public place. This is our space also. We have just as much a right to pray here as anyone else. And we can wear what we want, and we can, within the bounds of decency and respect of the place. If men are singing and dancing, why shouldn't we? And this started in 1988 by religious feminists. Both of whom, some of the founders actually are no longer with us. Rivka Hout and Bonna Haberman. They were instrumental in starting the Women of the Walls group. And it was picked up by the Israeli women also, Anat Hoffman, who's now the leader, of course, of Women of the Wall. And we're still fighting slowly but surely to get our rights at the Western Wall.
It just seems kind of strange. I guess it's just strange to me. I mean, and maybe it's just because I'm a very progressive and I'm Wiccan Christian. So it's, I'm in this kind of weird religious area. So, and also, I don't have as much knowledge of Judaism as I would really like to have. But from what I do know, it just seems like them kind of taking over the wall area itself in that manner just seems kind of antithetical.
Well, it's sort of that there's some sort of there's almost like an unwritten agreement also with the regular, with the secular establishment. And that is really who we're fighting against. It's not so much the ultra-Orthodox. I don't see the ultra-Orthodox as our, enemy or something like that. It's more the secular establishment that lets this happen. And who they're willing basically to trade. They say, from the point of view of perhaps, the police and the establishment, they say, well, just leave them alone. Let them have, it's like the Disney, the Western Wall, the Kotel is the Disneyland for the ultra-Orthodox. And just what do you have to bother them for? Go to your own synagogues and leave them alone. And for us, we say no, because whatever happens at the Western Wall creeps out. The separation starts at the Western Wall and it continues on into neighborhoods in Jerusalem. And from there, it's on buses where, women have to sit in the back of the bus. And it creeps and creeps. And it's only in Jerusalem, but then it's on buses between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And before you know it, it's reached Tel Aviv. We say, no, you have to nip this in the bud. And it starts at the Western Wall. The Western Wall is currently the holiest accessible place for Jews. For Jews, our holiest place is the Temple Mount, which is not completely accessible to us at the moment. So the Western Wall is our major place of prayer. And for people, religious or not, somehow whatever happens there, whatever happens at the Western Wall is going to happen outside. So if we push back at the Western Wall, it will also influence a pushback in the broader society.
What is it like to pray at the wall?
Well, I enjoy it very much, especially because our prayers are early in the morning. We do that so that most of us are working professional women and we have to be at work. So our prayers start at 7 a.m. Mm-hmm. In order to get to the Western Wall by 7 a.m., you have to get up at 5:30, and you're already walking in the old city. It's 6:30 in the morning. Just that is beautiful. Just mm-hmm. arriving at the Kotel at 6:30 in the morning. And to pray there and to know that this is, I'm standing in a place, Holy Jerusalem, and I'm standing at the foot of where our temple used to stand, along a wall that is 2,000 years old, that's been touched by millions and millions, and stones are worn smooth by millions of hands, and tears, rivers of tears have been poured there. And the sacrifice of the paratroopers in 1967 who liberated Jerusalem. It's just, there's so much history, there's so much tradition there. The words of our prayers when we talk about Jerusalem, and they just come alive.
Well, this time of year, at least for Wiccans, is, when we honor our ancestors. And I can't imagine just the feeling of all of the ancestors being with you as you pray. I think that, it would seem like that would be kind of the feeling when you're there.
Yeah, well, in our prayer, we always refer to, blessed are you, our God, the God of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we also add our mothers, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Mm-hmm. We add and in fact, the names of our mothers, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, are on the four corners of our prayer shawl. they're written. If you see a Women of the Wall prayer shawl, it's all colorful and it has birds and flowers embroidered on it. And at each corner, each one of the four corners, is a name of one of the matriarchs.
I think I've seen some of that in some of the news, because like one of the things that led me to want to interview someone from Women of the Wall is because I had been seeing some of the news items come up. And I think one of them was about an arrest, and I don't remember if it was you or somebody else, but, I had noticed that, and I noticed the shawls, and I was just like, wow, those are really cool. I thought, this is really amazing, because all you want to do is to be able to pray in the way you want to. And, it just seems, I guess, there's the fight for recognition for women in all over the place still. Because like there's some people that think that, oh, equality is already here, it's 2015. And it's like, no, I mean, women are still fighting for everything. I mean, even just on the internet,
Yeah, it's, I think 2 years ago, we were getting arrested for wearing that shawl. When I joined Women of the Wall, actually, I remember clearly, not even the shawls were an issue, but also our voices were an issue. I remember that my first time with Women of the Wall, I was petrified. A policeman stood right close to us, literally threatening us with arrest if we wouldn't lower the volume, as he called it.
Wow.
Yep. And then we had people getting arrested for wearing a prayer shawl. I was detained for wearing a prayer shawl, I think 3 times. There's a difference between being detained and arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Arrested is different rights, are taken from you, and you're handcuffed, and different things. Yeah, I've become an expert on that.
I've done the being arrested thing too. Actually, I was kind of not protesting. It was at the Republican National Convention in 2004, but that's a whole nother story. I think I've gone over it elsewhere, but yes, so I totally understand.
Totally understand. Yeah, arrest is different from detained, but we were being detained and arrested for wearing prayer shawls. Now we actually won at a certain point. The police arrested, I think, about 5 women and decided to charge them. And they made a mistake. That was about 2 years ago. That was a mistake because the first judge threw the charge out. And then when the police appealed the second to a higher court, the higher court also rejected the appeal and said that Women of the Wall were within their rights and were not causing any sort of disturbance. Any disturbance that there was caused by the ultra-Orthodox who, had started screaming and throwing things at us, and it wasn't, we were within our rights. And he added that we were within our rights to wear a prayer shawl and read from the Torah scroll. So since then, 2 years ago, we don't get arrested for singing. We don't get arrested for wearing prayer shawls. And if we manage to bring in that Torah scroll, we won't get arrested for reading from it. But as I told you before, the legislation still stands. We cannot actually bring one in. And currently that's our struggle. And we actually don't see a way out at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it there's some, in some part of my brain, it seems just kind of like, arrested for possession of scroll, it's kind of a strange thing, but, it's a very real thing. And do you also have your own synagogue as well, so that you guys could kind of regroup together in worship?
We as Women of the Wall don't. No, actually, that is the whole point of Women of the Wall, is that we come from all over the world. We come from all over Israel. we all have our own synagogues. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, but Judaism is split in quite a few different streams: the Orthodox, Reform, and Conservative, and others. And there are Jews who are secular. So we come from all the streams. We including secular. We have supporters who will come to the prayer. They will not open the prayer book, but they will stand with us as secular or even atheist, and they will stand with us and pray. Stand with us and in support. So we couldn't possibly regroup anywhere else except at the Western Wall, and it just works for us to have once a month. Our prayer service is on the new moon, on the first day of the Jewish month. The Jewish month goes by it's a lunar calendar, so we meet on the first day of the month.
Very cool. Do you do anything special for specific holidays?
Well, sometimes we do. There is one holiday called Purim. Don't know if you heard of it. It's a time we read the scroll of Esther, and it's a time when people get dressed up and give each other presents, and it comes out in about that would be around February, so something around that. Usually, it comes out usually a month before Passover. Anyway, so we have there's a reading of the scroll of Esther. Esther is the heroine of the story, right? And she's a female, obviously. So we celebrate too, and we also read the book of Esther at the Western Wall. And that's one time we don't usually have any trouble, because it's a day that everything goes, and everybody's half drunk anyway. It's like nobody's checking. I could get a Torah scroll in that day if I needed to, but no problem.
Yeah, that day you don't have to worry quite as much, huh? No, actually, I'm very familiar with the story of Esther. I used to be in a Masonic organization called the Order of Eastern Star, and one of the lessons is about the Book of Esther. So
I see.
So I'm very familiar with that one.
I see.
Do you have men that stand in solidarity with you while you're praying?
Oh, yes, we do. We do, and I think this past year they start to get really more active, and they even have their own Facebook page, and they're much more active now, and they've helped us with some of our exploits in smuggling in the Torah scroll. I can't. One of them I could say because it was in public, and one time they passed us the Torah scroll over the divider.
Oh wow!
They held a sort of a pretend bar mitzvah ceremony in the men's section. A bunch of people came, and we got like a 13-year-old boy, and they had a big pretend bar mitzvah for him, and then they finished with the Torah scroll and just passed it to us, and it was just so easy. I just took it from them. There are pictures of that plenty of pictures on our website. But now it only worked once, because the authorities at the Western Wall have now locked the gates. There's there are gates in the the divider between men and women, which were I could just open them at the time, which I did, and took the scroll. But now they're locked.
Oh, jeez!
And not only are they locked, but they set up like a second divider with like I don't know how to say it, like a kill zone in between, where they have like patrols when we're praying. They now patrol along that area between the two dividers. Now there are two on Rosh Chodesh, on the new moon, when women of the wall come. There are now two dividers between men and women. With like a meter space in between them. Yep. All because we did that. And then they've also helped us in other ways. And not only that, they stand behind us, and they sort of deflect some of the violence of the guys in a way that the men around, some of the ultra-Orthodox men want to, they want to argue, or they want to sometimes even get out their hatred in physical ways. And our poor male supporters have to deflect some of that, and they do. And unfortunately, some of them have gotten a little beaten up. Nothing too serious, but.
What do you think is behind all the anger in that?
I don't know. Sometimes it surprises me. Like, I'm not quite sure. I think it's a feeling of being threatened. Again, it's like this is our territory, and it's like we're threatening them. And I think that many people, ultra Orthodox, but also in Israel, there's a general lack of understanding about pluralism. Pluralism is not a concept here. Mm-hmm. It's very much a Western concept, and they just don't get it that they can be right and I can also be right. Mm-hmm. They can pray in their way and I can pray in my way, and that's okay. And they don't see it that way. They're like, no, you can't do your way. It's wrong. It's wrong. And if you do your way, my way is somehow threatened, because if you're allowed to do your way, then maybe your way is right, which means my way is wrong. And that's threatening.
Yeah. And it's not just Judaism that has that issue either. There's a lot of that kind of like my way is right, your way is wrong, and my way or the highway kind of thinking in a lot of traditions, even in the pagan traditions where I've done most of my work. There are people that are just like, well, if you're not doing it this way, you're not a proper whatever, you're not a proper Christian, you're not a proper witch, because this is the right way. And I don't know, it just, to me, I agree with you, you can be right and I can be right. We're of different traditions and we pray different ways, and they're still true because they're true to us.
They're true to each of us, right?
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the future of this movement?
Well, sometimes it seems like we have only a little bit more work to do, and then, and then we're free, and then we can disband, and, our work will be done, and we can all go on into other causes, even greater causes, right? Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's like, this will never end. Like, what are we going to do? And we're just in an impasse. But I think that I think that Israeli society is becoming more accepting of, I would say, different forms of Judaism. I think the concept of pluralism is trickling down. I mean, it may take a long time, but I think there's like a constant drip, and it's having an effect. When it has enough an effect that it reaches also the secular world, that's the most important. The secular Israeli has to realize that pluralism is important. Even if they're not interested in religion, even if they're not interested in praying at the Western Wall, it is in their interest that the Western Wall is a pluralistic place. So once that, maybe that will happen, I think it will. And yeah, I actually think the future of Women of the Wall is eventually to become obsolete. I mean, it sounds weird, but really maybe that will be our success. When it's so normal for women to do everything that we've asked to do, and we ask so little. We're not asking to do anything that is not commonly done at the Western Wall by men. I mean, it's so little. Sometimes we think about it, it seems almost a ridiculous cause. There are much more important causes. But the fact is that we can't do these things, and so there is this cause. And I think that once once we've achieved our goals, we'll become obsolete, and that will be our victory. Another scenario, aside from becoming obsolete, is at the Western Wall, there's talk of opening up a new area that will be pluralistic. Mm-hmm. That might involve compromises on our part. In other words, Women of the Wall might have to agree to leave the women's section and indeed to say, okay, we will leave the women's section and at the Orthodox tradition will reign at the women's section, and we will move to the new section that's being opened, which will be called, a pluralistic section. And we will be involved in the running and the administration of that area, and we'll create there the place where people will want to have their bar mitzvah ceremonies and their bat mitzvah ceremonies, and that will be the place where brides and grooms will want to take their pictures before their wedding and so on. For now it's the other. It's the section where the men's and the women's sections. So perhaps, that could also be the future of Women of the Wall, is that we'll move to the administration of a pluralistic area of the Kotel.
How does this intersect with other marginalized groups like LGBT? Like that's the first part that came to my head.
Yeah. Well, for us, there's it's the truth is, I would say that we have like all the liberal kind of groups, at least in Jerusalem, like it's all the same people. I keep meeting all the same people at the demonstrations and at the parades and stuff. I mean, currently one of the people on our board is I think she's the chairwoman of the open house for Pride and Tolerance in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. So she's I don't. Do you know that at the Jerusalem there was a girl killed and injured at the Jerusalem Pride Parade a few months back? I don't know if you heard about it. It was horrific. I
remember hearing about the parade, but I don't remember hearing about that happening.
Yeah, there was a horrible attack by an ultra-Orthodox Jew. He stabbed a young girl. He stabbed a few people. He stabbed a young girl, and she died of her wounds a few days later. Yes.
Yeah.
So about a week or so after that, we had our prayer service at the Western Wall, and we dedicated the service to Shira Banki. And we actually, that was one of the times we managed to bring in a Torah scroll. And I don't know if you know, but at the Torah reading ceremony, a person is called up. We say the person is being called up to the Torah, and they're given the honor of reading from the Torah or following along. It's their reading. They're being honored at the Torah.
Oh wow!
That's when a boy has a bar mitzvah or a girl has a bat mitzvah. That's the essence of it. That she's being called up to the Torah as an adult. Anyway, so we called up Dana, who's the chair of the open house. I think it's called the Open House for Pride and Tolerance in Jerusalem. And she came up, and it was a very emotional moment. There are pictures on our Facebook page also, if you're interested. And we said a prayer for Shira Banki and for tolerance. So I think we're all intertwined, definitely.
What do you hope for yourself, now and in the future of doing this movement? I mean, not just as an organization, but, for your own personal spiritual work?
For myself, I never actually thought of that. I'm so busy thinking about how to make the service spiritually significant to others. I don't know. I think. Oh my goodness, you've stumped me. I don't know. I get a spiritual high from when seeing a woman come to our service. Perhaps it's the first time she's ever seen a Torah scroll, or the first time she's worn a prayer shawl, or the first time she's sung with us and joined her voice to so many women. For me, that's my spiritual payback. I just want to be able to do more of it, and I would, for me, it's also important. I mean, I don't want it to sound crass, but the numbers are important. The numbers of people that I can bring, not just because to make us bigger and bigger group and for our cause, but also because the sound of so many voices is really beautiful. And I know, every voice that we can add to our group is just like another voice that reaches heaven.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen large groups in prayer, and there's nothing quite like hearing a large group pray together.
Right.
It's just
it does something for the other people,
Mm-hmm. Just even as a bystander, it's just kind of like, I remember I was at a protest and I was watching a group of Muslims pray, and they just fell in the middle of the street and started praying, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing, because there's that feeling you get when spirit is being raised in that big of a group.
That's right.
There's nothing quite like it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we had actually our largest group ever we celebrated our 25th anniversary about 2 years ago, and we had 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
If we include the men, our male supporters, which we do, we had 1,000, and it was really nice. At a certain point in the service, we also this was actually my idea. I like to come up with these creative ideas. So we had this idea for all of us to cover ourselves at the same time with our prayer shawls, and we picked up the prayer shawls, like people holding the four corners, so that it formed like a sort of a huge tent over the heads of 1,000 people. And that was quite nice. The picture of it actually got into Haaretz, which is one of the main newspapers in Israel. So, yeah.
That is very cool. I'll have to look that up because I want to see that picture now.
Oh, yeah. Just type in 25th anniversary, Women of the Wall, Talit. Talit is the name of our prayer shawl. That's the prayer shawl in Hebrew.
All right. I'll definitely have to look that one up. So, if people wanted to get involved with Women of the Wall, not just in Jerusalem, but internationally, what should they do? Who should they contact?
Well, first thing is to go to our website, and we do have a contact for that exact question. I think now I think there's an info at womenofthewall.org.il. That's an email. I do know that there are many of the Jewish communities in America have, like a sort of a Women of the Wall group. We have Washington Friends of Women of the Wall. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a group starting now, Toronto Friends of Women of the Wall, and so on. And they have held in the past, they've held protest rallies outside the Israeli embassies. And they've had their prayer services. Sometimes they hold parallel prayer services. Like if, also in London, they were doing that for a while. I think sometimes the first day of the Hebrew month comes out on a Sunday, which is, convenient for people in America. Mm-hmm. So, once or twice a year it will turn out that way, and there will be prayer services to join. Yeah, I mean, best thing is just contact us, and We definitely have, there are ways to support us. We run the marathon, the Jerusalem Marathon, in January or February.
Oh, wow.
So we're always happy to be sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
We're even happier if people will come and run with us. If anyone's going to be there, check on our website for the dates. And we'd love to have supporters from outside Israel join us to run for Women of the Wall.
What about people who are not Jewish but would like to support the work of Women of the Wall?
I don't think it really makes any difference. Everything I said, you can run with us, you can come pray with us.
Cool.
You can rally. I don't think really there's any difference.
Awesome. Well, maybe the next time your prayer time comes around, I'll light a candle and say a few prayers myself.
Well, I'll tell you when it is.
Okay.
It is October 14th.
All right.
That comes out. When is that? That's next Wednesday, I think. Or not next Wednesday, but...
Yep, next Wednesday.
Well, no, not next. Oh, yes, next. Oh, my goodness.
Next for me.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, my goodness, yes.
I know time is kind of flying.
Oh, yes.
This time of year is always kind of...
Right. So 7 a.m. Jerusalem time, October 14th.
I'm trying to calculate that in my head, but it's 9-10 hours of difference?
Yeah, so 7, that would be 9 p.m. at night?
Yes.
That's 10 hours?
Yep.
Oh, we have a, better than that, we have a live stream. Usually, almost always, we have live stream. Yep, we have live stream. You have to check our Facebook. Our Facebook is like the place where we all announce everything.
All right, well, we'll definitely have a link to that in the show notes so that people can go and check that out. And I'll probably try and get on the live stream because I adore live streaming and internet stuff. So yeah, that's very cool. Yeah.
Then you can see us. Sometimes it's a bit sketchy, the live stream, because the internet connection at the Western Wall is not so good. Mm-hmm. We suspect also sometimes it's on purpose fiddled with when we're there. Mm-hmm. Because we've had times when we've been there, like as individuals, and it seems the connection is just fine, and then suddenly on the mornings we're there.
Funny, it's broken, right?
It's broken.
Sigh. But I hope.
We had worse things. I mean, we had times when they would set up a loudspeaker system for the men to have the men's prayer. Mm-hmm. They would try to shout us down, and successfully. Wow. It's very hard when you have a huge sound system set up, blaring someone else's prayers. And the administration of the Western Wall can get quite nasty. So
sounds like, and it just. In some ways, because I'm not there, just looking at it from a completely outsider point of view, it's kind of like, what? Why? But yeah,
look, it all depends also on the political climate. When we manage to get political pressure on the person who runs the Western Wall is a government employee. At the end of things, he's a government employee. So when, sometimes we manage to get political pressure on him, and then sometimes the political pressure is on us. And it's a battle, it's ups and downs. And the times that have been very hard are when he's benefited from some sort of, political, from his side, goodwill, and then we're in trouble, and then they're able, the police is kind of on their side, and then sometimes things go our way and the police is on our side. Mm-hmm. So depends. Yeah. Do you think it's exciting?
Yeah. Do you think the general political winds are changing around this, or do you think it's still up and down, day to day?
Well, right now it's not good for us because right now there's a right-wing government in Israel, and well, it's actually not the fact that it's right-wing; it's that it's a coalition with the ultra-Orthodox parties. I mean, also left-wing governments have had coalitions with ultra-Orthodox parties. So when ultra-Orthodox parties are in power, women of the wall, usually have it much harder. Like we have like always now, like the justice minister, like threatening that they're gonna like to kind of go back, like the stuff that we've now achieved, we could actually lose. There's always that threat. When we made our greatest strides about 2 years ago or so, that was actually when the ultra-Orthodox were not in the government. They were not part of the coalition. So it's not by chance that that's when we made some political strides.
Right.
So right now we're in a very difficult situation. I would actually say we're at an impasse, and the only way we're going to, get out of it is with building popular support, basically, in Israel. Mm-hmm. Of course, our supporters outside of Israel are very important too, but we have to build popular support in Israel for our cause.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, you need to kind of have that internal movement just to move forward.
Right.
Because, as much outside the support you can get, it's the inside work that
absolutely
needs doing. All right. Well, we're just about out of time. So if people would like to contact you to ask some questions or to get more information, what's the best way to contact you?
Contact me personally?
Yeah, because I think some people might want to talk to you if they feel more comfortable talking to a singular person. Or
right. How about Facebook? Is that good?
Uh-huh.
Does everyone have Facebook?
I'd say most of my listeners probably do. We'll have that link in the show notes, as well as the main Facebook page for Women of the Wall. And I can get that to you offline, from you right. Offline.
Absolutely. And also, if anyone, you can, you can write an email to Women of the Wall and have it sent as a message to me. We're just a small group of women that, we're volunteers and we run the organization. So it's not like a message to Women of the Wall will also get to me.
All right. Well, that's great. And thank you so much for being on, and especially from so far away. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. So long. Bye.
I'd like to thank Rachel for joining us on This Week in Heresy. You can subscribe to This Week in Heresy via iTunes or the Stitcher app, or follow us on Twitter at TWIH Podcast. You can also financially support this podcast through patreon.com. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave me a message at thisweekinheresy.com.